And of course, in fulfillment of Article 58 of the Liberian Constitution, President Sirleaf on Monday delivered her 11th State of the Nation address, where traditionally it is expected that the president would talk about achievement during the past year. President talked about expectation for the coming years in places like the U.S. It's a State of the Union address. And so, following that, there have been mounting debate, there have been critiquing of the president's address. This morning we've invited the national chairman of the Alternative National Congress, and we are cognizant of the fact that this is part of our democratic process where political parties flex their muscles on emerging issues in society. And so Mr. Wu is here this morning to provide the ANC's position with regard to the president's recent State of the Nation's address. We'd like to say good morning and welcome to the Breakfast Show on this Friday.
Good morning, Jacob B. and Varney. Good morning, Liberia. I'm always honored to be in your company on this platform.
Thank you so much for joining us, and Happy New Year to you, so to speak.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year, Jacob B. It's been a while.
Okay. And I'm sure you've been following the debate, you've been listening to people giving their own position with respect to the President's State of the Nation address. I'd like you to use the next 2 minutes to provide your own position as an opening statement on what you make of the address.
Well, you know, I mean, for all intent and purposes, I think this may have been the President's best annual message so far, and, you know, in as much as it comes short of some of the things you expect. But I mean, over the years, you have to agree that the government either has refused or failed to bring the level of transformation beyond what it has done. So you can get you know, more than you can get from people. I think there has been some changes in Liberia, but when people try to contrast and compare, you know, this government with where we came from, you know, the interim years, or perhaps the war years, then it's disingenuous to do that. If you would try to do that kind of comparison against normalcy and what we had as a normal times in our country before, then I think you would be objective to do that, because if you compare it against the years of the war, then of course this government will look like a saint, and it isn't. But there's been some good. I mean, we ought to be objective in our criticism. But, you know, looking at the president's speech and critiquing it, and people, you know, losing sleep over it, I don't think it's substantive enough and authentic enough for politicians to want to engage in that. I think it's just an exercise. For some, it's an academic exercise. I think we need to be much more substantive in our deliberation, our approaches, and on what we expect of government. It's just not a mere speech, because I didn't expect much, and this time the president actually delivered. Okay. But for those who wrote the speech, next time just number it and make it legible, because the president was fumbling after she lost some pages there.
Just to take you back a bit, you rated it as the best. Comment. You rated it as the best
that she has done over the years.
Yeah, but you're not talking about the content of the speech. You're talking about what has been done.
Well, the delivery mode, except for that, where she was, you know, stumbling and trying to connect the pages. But
are you focused on the content of the speech, or you are focusing on what the president has been able to achieve? Which one?
Well, if you talk about the level of achievement, and yes, and that's a very good question. If you talk about level of achievement, I think it's negligible compared to the kind of support we have gotten as a nation. It's very negligible. But if you compare what she's been saying, you know, some of the things were all cut and paste, and they were just talking about fixing the blame here, and sometimes you hear, oh, Ebola has gotten us down, and so forth, or come up with controversial figures that we have created 20,000 jobs, and then trying to substantiate, you have to count people who loading vehicles on the street, or maybe poor mothers who cross Boston rocks and all of
Pimpin'
riders and all of that stuff. And then they have this, grandiose argument about vulnerably employed or unemployed and all that kind of confusing phrase that we use and words. But this time, I think she took some time in trying to ascertain the facts before that she opened a can of worms like she usually does when she gives her annual message.
So you are confirming for sure that the speech met your expectation. Is this what you expected to have heard from the president?
Oh, look, I expected to hear something at a lower level. I think she surpassed it in terms of the delivery mood and what they offer. I mean, look, there are a lot of things wanting in the speech. For example, the president talked about passing a mental health bill. Well, you don't need just a bill to address the fact that you have so many insane people on the street that run the risk of hurting other folks. And not because they so desire, but they don't know better. They're just roaming the street. There's a guy who got some very a ring on his finger.
Yeah, on his fingers, yeah.
And he's suffering, and the Ministry of Health, they're just looking at this guy suffering. I mean, for me, I think this weakness. You need to get him and take him somewhere and remove those rings from the finger. I'm sure it's not just about submitting a bill to the Ministry of Finance every month for paycheck and gas slips and all the benefits. It's about doing something, and you don't need a bill for that. There are other issues. I think the president disappointed me this time by surpassing what I expected. I thought she was going to get some controversial figures.
What about talking about a bill calling for the establishment of a local government ministry or so, when you have the Ministry of Internal Affairs?
Look,
and we are talking about trying to have a small-sized government.
This government has always said that they were trying to get a small-sized and effective government. They even went on and they adopted a popular phrase around here that they were right-sizing and not downsizing. And if you look at all of the statistics, you will see that we have a bigger government than we ever had before. They're being able to, they brought about more ministries, usurping the functions of so many different agencies of government, overlapping of work going on, and so no one to tell. I mean, I think we have a bloated government than we ever had before.
You don't see flaws in the president's address?
I didn't expect much of it, and so we got what we got. I mean, what do you expect to get from the president after all these years? I heard something.
Mr. Gould, when you speak like this, the interpretation you are sending in the minds of people out there is that the 1 hour 20-some odd minutes speech delivered by the president on Monday speaks volume that we are in a good state.
Well, look, there are many schools of thoughts. If you argue with some of the diehards, they would say that our country is better because they are comparing it with the war years. So they will say the country is better. If you talk to some, they'll say we're catching, difficult times. I think we're in difficult times. But the way we can affect our desire is by going to the polls and electing people that we believe can transform our country. This is not just about mere argument anymore. I think the country is in difficult times. But what I see some pundits do is to try to draw comparison, with this government and the past government, and knowing that those were difficult times coming out of the war years. But again, those are very crafty way of getting off the hook.
But when this government wants to brag about what it has achieved,
it has done a lot of things too.
And it definitely also do the same thing with comparing itself with the previous government.
And now we have to be seasoned enough and sober enough to say, no, you can't do that. You had an interim government, for example, that was operating out of an $80 million budget. It was not by choosing. The government prior to that was operating some $400, $500 million. And going back into the the Samuel Doe regime, we were operating $500 million budget. So if you want to, compare against an interim government that was operating on about $80 million budget because of the civil crisis, all of the industries have shut down and so forth, then I think it's disingenuous. So the fact of the matter, let me be on record to say that the government has done some good, no doubt.
Okay.
They're being able to waive our debt, but they're being able to create more debt as well. We have 438 million, I believe, in debt again. But they make the justification for a good cause. They also claim that they have paved more kilometers of road than any other government in history. That could be true, but as you advance with time and life evolves, you expect more. To whom much is given, much is expected.
The President's State of the Nation address is a comprehensive composition of what heads of ministries and agencies will submit to the President as per their respective performances they may have done over the years. So if you were to do it sector by sector, where do you think the President needs to focus, perhaps a particular minister or ministry, and say, hey, over the years you've not performed well?
Well, without getting into fixing the blame, I like for the government collectively.
You as a political party, you try to identify the shortcomings and then you make recommendations. That's my point.
Yeah, but we're beyond just recommendation. I think we need to start to act, and we're getting into that season where we will urge our people to act because we want everybody to be creative on the record. But look at the agricultural sector, for example. There's nothing done, no steps. All I see happen is a bill submitted to the Ministry of Finance every month for gas slips, salary, benefits, wages, what have you, and nothing is done. When you talk, they say, oh, look at Cary, we got a farm there. I mean, people will literally look into your eyes and term of gardening, just a gardening, a farm, and they're doing this and they're doing that. I mean, look, the Ministry of Health, for example, prior to Ebola, they were collecting just salaries, there, and really doing nothing. The slightest epidemic that hit our country, right, threw the whole economy out of balance. Now, I heard while coming to the station, Jangi Babet called, and he made a clearing call.
Yeah.
I hope to take heed to that and start to perform. But let's give them some credit, though. After the Ebola hit, and all hell broke loose, they step out to the plate, and we are where we are today. So let's not wait until we're in a grave situation before we rise up to the occasion.
So you agree that agriculture has been pushed now by this government should be a place that the economy can be revised?
Certainly. Food security is very vital to the survivability of any nation. I mean, it was comical. I heard, no disrespect to my deacon, Vice President Joe Boycott, but I heard some, whether it was an infomercial or something going on, but just an excerpt of some comments that he made that he was saying that roads and agriculture, those are my area, no-brainer. We'll just take care of those, even if we wake up from bed. And I was laughing because, something of that sort. And I was laughing very hard because, Vice President Boyka is number 2 in the country. He and the president actually drives the direction of our economy and the whole country. And for you now to come when we're in this season, I don't know if that message is really resonating. It certainly didn't resonate with me.
We have integrity institutions like the GAC, the SCC, but then if you were to read the President's communication or State of the Nation address, you understand that she talked about submitting a bill to create a fast-track corruption and financial crimes court. Do we need a financial crime court or we need political will to fight corruption?
Well, look, let me say this to you.
We already have the LACC now.
Yeah, but she was talking about a court. She was not talking about the agency to to try them. She was talking about a court, the place where it should be independent.
The presence of the court and lack of political will, those are two.
And that's the issue I'm coming to. You have enough laws on the books, enough agencies of government that can persecute.
Thank you.
You have enough. Also, you have enough courts that can persecute. Look, I was tried by this government for economic crimes in the courts. Here, there's not a lack of sufficient courts to try people, and the laws are very effective. I was in trial. The whole trial lasted for about 42 days or so. They had to try me over and over and over again, hoping that they'll get some different results. But at least one of the trials lasted about 42 days. That in itself is for this kind of crimes that we want to investigate, that's being speedy. 42 days of trial for corruption cases is fast enough. I don't think we need that. I think what the president was cleverly doing was to shift the focus. I think it's the lack of the political will to ensure that we prosecute people, because understandably so, some of those persons who are in government are friends
And when she talked
for many years, relatives. To prosecute them,
and when she talked
could be
about
tough.
the $16 billion investment Liberia have been able to accrue over the years, and she said only 4 point some more of that amount have been operationalized. Is this something substantive?
Well, I hope it is, but this clarity only came about when the ruling party national chairman, raised the issue. He raised the issue, and so
By saying nothing.
Yeah, and that's when the government came about with the clarity, because it was quite embarrassing. At first, they left the ambiguity to their advantage and didn't provide any clarity, so that people would believe that they were able to attract $16 billion to the country. When people started crying and raising alarm that we don't see the impact of the $16 billion, and then it had to be buttressed by the national ruling party chairman. Then they said, wait a minute here. So they couldn't be seen as fighting within the ranks.
But has the ANC seen the impact of the 16 or the 4 billion that have been utilized?
Well, the ANC is a direct representation of Liberian people. We haven't seen any impact. I mean, the country is just tough, and people will argue, oh, we're better than the last time. Well, we'll live, we'll learn, we want to be better than it used to be. You see, the world is advancing. Life is easier than it used to be in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s. So we expect better. And this is a president who have the wherewithal, the knowledge, the pedigree, should have a lot of good jobs out there that will give up the necessary requisite experience to be able to deliver. I think had the president been slightly younger, and no offense, Madam President, if she has been slightly younger before coming to this post, perhaps she will have much more energy.
You think age is playing on the influence of the president?
In my mind, a little bit. She's a grandmother. She looks at issue a little differently. She has a different perspective on life. So to take a tough decision that she would do when she was really the Iron Lady, she'll look back on things and say, "Don't do that again," and try to grandmother the country, But again, that is a natural thing for people. Once you reach a certain age, you look at life much more soberly and so forth.
Electricity is just one area. Is it possible that the government can really keep the Liberian people electricity?
Well, I see her putting a lot of energy and into this. I think she wants to tie her legacy perhaps on this, restoring electricity, to our country. That would be a very good thing. We had thought that the president would have nailed that down in the first 3 years of our administration. That would have pushed the economy way beyond the. Perhaps we will be talking about raising revenue up to $1 billion if she had done electricity first. Look, I'm a Christian. Look at the Bible, what it says about God and creation. God could have chosen to create anything first, but the first thing he did when he was forming the earth, he said, "Let there be light." If God is so knowledgeable and has all the wisdom that can be measured, elects to bring about electricity first, very much more about human being and the impact it would have on the country. I think it was a miscalculation, either because of the lack of finance, but we needed to do anything to bring that because it would have turned our economy.
But when they keep attributing it to external shocks, like fall in the prices of our prime commodity we export, like the iron ore and rubber, they keep attributing it to that.
Well, look, if you were able to waive that debt, I think we could borrow money to get electricity and turn our economy. No economy strives without electricity. I mean, you just tell me what, you know. But, this president is very, she's a politician for many years, well over 50 years of active political engagement. I see her, she proposed to submit a bill that will reduce the tenure of the presidency.
Saying what the Liberian people want, give them what they want.
But look, I really laugh and say this woman's a genius. The president is good at what she does. For you to wait until
you are reaching the expiration date,
the close of your last term, and you're running out of term, and then submit a bill and say, look, the rest of you coming behind, you do this. I mean, I laugh so hard, but this is the craftiness of the president. She's a wizard. What she did was, look at the guy in Senegal. As soon as he took on, he's moving to reduce his term. So even if he opt to run for a second term, he will go into that with a reduction in the term limit. Well, the president waited and waited and waited. And what we also expect the president to do is he will wait at the dime minute and sign off on the World Crimes Court. And then whatever immunity is there, rightfully she'll get it and then sign off on a court, and we'll have that to deal with in the next.
Do you hold a view?
Will do that?
Of course.
Do you hold a view of lawmakers or other pundits who have said, perhaps I could put it in proper context by saying, annoying, boring, repetitive? Where do you think you can place this State of the Nation address?
Well, I don't know if any lawmaker. I mean, there are quite a few of them that are good example. My senator is an excellent senator, and no bias here. And quite a few of them.
Whose senator is that?
Oh, Dan and the
Okay,
is an excellent senator, but no bias here. But the point here is though, do some of them really have the moral standing to talk about the president's speech and say it was boring?
Most
of their activities over there is extremely boring.
Okay.
I mean, they go and on very serious matter, you hear, and they will just with a full G.
So they are now worthy of criticizing the president. That's your point?
Some of them, they are very good folks in there. But look, at this point in time, everybody will start playing politics with everything. But many of them are up for re-election, and we're going to replace just about all of them, almost.
Then let me take you in your backyard. If you have said the most, you say most of the folks there go and do yea, nay. But what I have observed, perhaps you could counter-argue that over the years, or in Liberia, it has been enculturated that political parties are more focused on scrutinizing the executive more than the legislative branch. We accept the fact that the executive does the implementation, but then the legislature have got to do with laws. You don't focus on them more. Why?
Well, I don't know by what measurement you do. We're engaged in the legislature a lot because we have direct representatives within there.
On a wider scale, political parties in Liberia are more focused on the executive.
Because the president, controls the purse, and the purse drives the direction of the country. So, I was listening to the station before getting here. You were talking about the executive just writing this legislature and providing an ultimatum and say, we'll start to reduce your salary. Well, there's an adage, a Liberian adage that says, if you cook yourself in tomato cup, they'll dish you with broomstick. I mean, for Christ's sake, I don't recall whether the late President William Aratoba could have written to the House of Richard Henry with that kind of instruction. I mean, hell will break loose. I mean, I'm not talking about chaos, but it won't happen. I don't think the president will even imagine that, because people were conducting themselves in a way that were somewhat honorable, you know. But you know, people like to attribute it to the war. We haven't been taking time to vet all of our people in there. Sometimes we've been voting on emotions and sentiments, and sometimes protests and dissent, and so that has been the case.
But you also identified that will be replacing almost all of them.
Oh,
Is that good for the country? Because almost everyone that goes in there, they got to learn on the job and all of that. You keep replacing, it's a good thing.
No, JKB, don't you start that. Look, I rather
the place you live many years in America, people stay there for over years, 30 years and plus. But you're calling for every time to be changing people around it.
But it's based on performance. Performance, for Christ's sake. We don't want people to be there for continuity's sake. We want you to perform, and if you don't perform, we'll try to replace you. I think we should replace just about all the lawmakers, just about all of them. I mean, there are quite a few of them. I don't want to get into that kind of
including
discussion.
one you just brought.
But he's a senator. He has tenure. I mean, he's gonna be. He's a great guy. I mean, don't take it from me. Check his records at the Senate. He's a great guy. Makes meaningful contributions. Not combative, not argumentative, but he's very shrewd. Organized. He's a professional, consummate professional.
Information Minister Designate Eugene Len Nangwe said,
good friend of mine.
Good, okay. He said, many a times opposition parties or pundits or so, citizens critique the government without proffering suggestions on how to move the country forward. Has it been that with the ANC?
No, we're reading the president quite a few letters and proposing some things, and we have been actively engaged with many issues. When this reduction in salary came about, we were raising alarms, and we communicated with the government that if they were doing that, we hope that they will use the law to do that instead of being arbitrary with it. And we single out that we didn't feel that integrity institutions like the National Elections Commission, the GAC, the LSCC, and so forth should be affected. And I think we made the case sufficiently enough that the president put a hold on to that process. I think because of some tough times again, we're getting back to where we were before. But I think in the wisdom, they will remove the integrity institution.
You think this government is responsive to political parties when you make suggestions?
Well, you see, you have to assume on the basis of reasoning that suggestions will be taken. Now, you don't want a rubber-stamped government, but if you provide clear reasoning, I think the president will listen, and she has on many occasions. We wrote her, for example, about the slow pace of the work of the executive mansion, and we thought that it would be nice, and she met it in a good state to try to leave it like that. And even if she didn't meet it, it will not be a good thing for the presidency to continue to be displaced, you know, and whoring up. And
you see that as being displaced?
Yeah, because we spent, you heard President Tutman, he spent $10 million to build the executive mansion approved by the legislature at the time. If we spend that kind of money at that time, worth maybe $100 million or more in today's dollars, and for the presidency to operate from, reside and work from, and then it was a national obligation for us to have it restored. And the mansion was functional when the president took over. No doubt there needed to be some things as a result of the toll.
If you were to weigh progress,
she listened and went the next Monday to inspect the place and started to put some pressure. So
if you were to weigh progress against deficiency, which is more?
Well, look, mankind always want, and there will always be a desire for more and doing better, and to whom much is given, much is expected. So on that premise, I would think that there have been a lot of deficiency than good.
There are some also who have problem with when the president, for instance, is talking about this latest situation with the 10 megawatt, and she tried to retrospect, but tried to reflect on the 2006 situation when there was absolutely nothing. There are some who say, you keep talking about the past. We are talking about State of the Nation address. Do you have problem when the president wants to talk about road today and she try to connect that with the situation in the past?
Well, I don't have problem, but if you just bring it to 2006, then because we all know this is a known fact that the war damaged most of our infrastructure. So if you would draw a comparison and try to contrast between where you met the country, it would be unfair. Because this is a collection.
She should not be doing it, that's what you're saying?
No, she should not. If she wants to do it, she should do it maybe perhaps compared from the years of 1989, 88. We were in normal times. That's the point I'm making. To say right after the war and then try to compare, I made no money so I'm bringing money. That is not fair. I think it's a very crafty way to put it. But if you want to say, look, versus the last time that we have of normalcy, and then draw it up against my time.
But if you were to go on the internet and read President Obama's State of the Union address, because they refer to it as that,
yes.
2016,
Yeah.
he mentioned the situation with the capturing of Bin Laden. He also mentioned the situation with the Benghazi attack. So they just don't focus within that year, but they try to go outside to try to connect.
Yeah, you would try to connect, and I
But in Liberia, when the president does that, then people have problem by saying you keep talking about the past.
No, it has to be significant enough. This accomplishment has to be significant enough that has lasting impact, going beyond even the years of achievement. And also it has to be in normal times. And then it has to have a connect. Then you can draw those analysis, going through the years. But if you come and tell me that, oh, we beat Ebola, and then in 2017 you mentioned we beat Ebola, and because of Ebola the country suffered so dearly, but you don't tell us how much money came into the country as a result of the Ebola, because while our economy was being crippled, we had a lot of goodwill coming into the country. We still got yet to get an actual accounting report on the Ebola.
Going to the issue about report, if you were to look at Article 58, they talk about expenditure.
Yes.
Have you gotten a fair understanding about expenditure with respect to this government? Because the Constitution requires that, as per Article 58.
Well, I haven't gotten any fair understanding about that. I just mentioned that funds that we received during those medical emergency period are still not reported. And
you say that all of you now going after, you're not interested in it?
Well, look, let me tell you,
this is what she should be telling the people according to the article.
Let me tell you one thing, Jacob. We have the Freedom of Information Act. I just can't recall at any instance whether by a political party or by and we've used it on many occasions to no avail. And some of the things we have to now resort to doing is to resort to litigation, because you would think that a responsible agency of government will respond to the law. Some of them frequently violate the law, and they do that with a level of impunity. Somebody will say, we're not submitting anything. I remember writing the board of NOCAR, very recently before they were dissolved, and there were some issues and so forth. We wanted to ascertain about the amount of money. There were controversy about what they gave the legislature and what they doing the nationwide tour and so forth. And we were using the Freedom of Information Act. To this day, they never responded. And you have to, because of scarcity of resources, you have to determine some of the things that you will actually pursue litigation for and so forth, because you also have scarcity of time manpower, resources, and so forth. But that was very irresponsible on their part.
Okay, finally, as we take on to the line, what do you stand, your party stand on this issue about auditing the legislatures and they receive funding, government funding?
JKB, Varney, look, you're kidding me. These are the folks who were somehow in a heartbeat, a twinkling of an eye. Any government agency and come and explain this and explain that. I remember they were grueling and drilling the I think Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports at one time and so forth. And they will be fast to come to your throat and raise a laugh. You receive money, be audited. What is that? I mean, if the presidency can be audited, who shouldn't be? We pay taxes. You use the money, and you know.
They said they are not a spending agent.
So what? But they make requests. There are many that, so they are just telling us that only the Ministry of Finance should be audited, because only the Ministry of Finance will expend funds mostly, because there are some small petty cash that the line ministry will spend. But the argument is it that only the Ministry of Finance.
The GSC can audit them because GSC reports to them.
But there's a lot. Why?
GSC report to them directly.
Listen, you receive money should be audited, even if it means we get external auditors. We do that.
Okay.
But look, it doesn't fly well with the public. The fact that you say I shouldn't be audited raises suspicion, and you should be without reproach.
Okay.
07777133015. Let's take a few calls. Horatio Gould is the chairman of the National Alternative National Congress.
I'm going to hold you in contempt.
No, so sorry. You see that right for me. Let me take a few calls. Good morning.
Good morning,
JKB, please.
sorry, JKB, and good morning to Varney.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, my dear.
It's a good and he spoke well, but I can't problem with him. He's not being, not being settled like great people. He was very disingenuous when he said that his lawmakers, they wouldn't want him legislature.
I didn't say that.
That is doing well.
No, he didn't say that. He said few of them.
Yeah, he said, but he threw out his lawmaker.
I remember only his name.
Lawmakers, I mean, most of them need to go out with the exception of Senator Lincoln.
No.
He didn't say that, my dear. Okay, just say the issue, but he didn't say that.
You didn't hear me good, brother.
Okay, so like I said, I want to commend the president. You know, people complaining why the president has to say, things from 2008 and something back.
Yeah.
But like Varney said, you know, the state of the US, the president tried to hold on the achievement. But they took the nation from President Obama, did the state of the Union address within. He mentioned one thing that he did in 2008, 9, and coming forward. Okay? So it should be no problem. It's all about the substantive. What the president is saying is true, is in the interest of the people.
Okay.
It should be the concern, and not whatever something that have been said before.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, Focus.
Focus, you're welcome. Go ahead.
About what I think he make a sense.
She said 4 billion.
Evidence to that, the president has now called for the legislation for the revision of the agreement that government has entered into, so there's a clear manifestation that all of the concessions are opposing Labrador, just of the giving evidence or giving more reports. So I think Mr. Gould is making sense.
Okay.
It is true, many of us will take forward some of our analysis. And one of the points you should be found is that that's a national issue. The issue is a national issue. I mean, the state is this national responsibility. And thereby the state will sit there and the foreign affairs. I think these are very general and serious issues many of us are still electoral, and people are found the activities must be ready to consider, and you as the president should just bound with just only make up for, and she has.
Okay, focus. With the situation of the executive mansion, there is ongoing work at the executive mansion.
Okay.
An Italian company called SIFA actually working.
Slow pace though.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take another call. 0777. One more call is there. No time left now. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, Varney.
Yeah.
Good morning.
You're welcome, Moses. Okay. Thank you so much, man. Let me leave it with it. Thank you so much. He said amen?
Amen.
What do you mean? So now I'm sure you listen to the callers and you get used to all of that part of your parting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity and providing a platform where we can, speak directly and provide our analysis, our opinion on some of the issues and our party's policies and on some of those national burning national issues. We want to, thank the Liberian people for being supportive. We're getting in the electoral season now. The circle has begun. We want you to be mindful. I mean, this is the only time politicians will listen to you. Let's elect a good leadership. It starts with us.
Do you agree with Morris's comment that some of the political actors, opposition, are more subjective in the way they speak?
I don't agree with him. He has to.
They don't see nothing at all.
No. I praise the government here on many issues, but you see, you have to define our rules. For example, a gun is manufactured to shoot people and kill. Why is a bad thing? It achieves its intent for being manufactured. Our role as opposition is to oppose constructively the government. Our role is not to govern or to praise him. The government has enough people that are much more qualified than we are to praise him for them. Our role is to oppose them constructively, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. Honorable Horatio Gould is the national chief.